Okay. We ready? Here we go. Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Waverley Local Planning Panel public hearing. On behalf of the panel, we respectfully acknowledge the Indigenous heritage of the Waverley local government area and recognise the ongoing Aboriginal tradition custodianship of the land which forms the area. The planning panel today, we've got our experts, Graham Brown and Megan Jones, and our community member, Sam Marshall. I will be the chair, Jacqueline Townsend. We've got 7 items on the agenda today, along with a number of speakers. There's declarations of interest. Can I ask the panel, does anyone have any interested, Claire, on any matter today? No?
I don't.
No?
No, I don't.
No.
I have no conflicts.
Thank you. In accordance, so the panel has inspected the properties either via VSL or in person. And the presentations today, given the number of speakers, we will limit everyone to 3 minutes. And I'll ask that if each speaker could be respectful of waiting your turn, muting yourself and turning off any mobile phone so it doesn't call when you speak. We'd also ask that if there is a speaker before you who's making a submission similar to which you want to make, if you could just support that submission and just make any additional comments. The panel, after hearing all the submissions on each item today, will then adjourn the meeting and we will go into a separate meeting for deliberations in private, with the outcome on each item being placed up on the council website in due course. So the speakers today, like I said, if we could keep it to 3 minutes, if we could be respectful of each other. Sometimes it's difficult to hear other comments made by other people, especially if they don't agree or don't concur with what you're saying. But if we all just listen carefully and respectfully, we'll get through this in a well manner, a well-behaved hearing. All right. So the first item today on the agenda is DA 1682023. I'll just also remind everyone this meeting's being recorded and no one else is to record this meeting without permission. The DA 168-2023 is 90 Ramsgate Avenue, Bondi Beach. It's a demolition and construction of a new 4-storey residential building, flat building, containing 6 units with integrated basement parking. We received a number of submissions which were provided to the panel, who have considered, and also I note they're in the report. And we have speakers today speaking against the proposal and also the applicant. So if we can hear first from Con Kotasis. Con, are you there?
I am here, yes. Just before I proceed, I did email council yesterday. We've actually applied for an objection with my next door neighbour, Justine Taylor, in Unit 9. And I understand that council would like only 1 speaker per objector. And if that's the case, I'll ask the panel to listen and hear Justine on behalf of myself and Justine.
Oh, okay. We've got Justine listed as well, Con. So you're just going to hand over to Justine?
Yes, I will. Yes.
Great. Thank you, Con, for letting us know.
No worries. That's
Justine,
okay.
You're nodding, so you're there. So when you're ready.
Yes. Hello, panel. Thank you very much for accepting both of us. I might read some of my notes. I apologise. I'm a little nervous about this. It means a lot to us.
Yeah.
The proposed development for us will result in substantial view impacts, and we're going to feel that those.
Oh, you're frozen, Justine. We'll just stop the time there. Justine, it's unfortunate. She probably doesn't. Yep, she's gone. Just bear with us to see if we can get Justine back.
Okay. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back. Great. Okay.
Great. Okay. The view was a really defining feature in deciding to purchase this property just a couple of years ago, and I believe it will probably be quite a bit of a loss in value to the properties. I currently have a really clear view of the water and iconic Bondi headland.
Oh, it looks like you've gone again, Justine. It must be her internet that she's having trouble with, obviously. She's gone again, and oh, there you are. Your internet keeps cutting in out, Justine. Do you have your phone there? Maybe dial in through your phone might be easier. Yeah, we can't hear you at all now. Okay, that's okay. Don't rush. It happens to all of us. We're more tolerant of it now, aren't we, post-COVID? He's coming through a phone now, is that right? No. You might want to just jump out, Justine. Yeah. She's frozen again. There's someone talking. Who's talking? On? You're back on, Justine. Can you speak? Can you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see
Okay.
how we go.
Okay. So now, so I currently have great views from my kitchen where I spend a fair bit of time. We also, before buying this apartment, there was another development just to the left of the proposed development from my view, the proposed development being number 90. To the left, there's a site currently being built at number 92 Ramsgate, and that was approved just before we both bought our apartments. So we didn't get an opportunity back then to object. And once complete, this development will block a view of the water I currently get from my bedroom. And if we lose some more views now due to the current application of number 90, I do feel that loss is going to be compounded and a bit devastating, really. We understand that our upstairs rooftops are being taken into consideration, but we really use them a fraction of the time from our living spaces. And we just would wonder if perhaps a different design would provide the application with same development potential and reduce the impact of view losses on us. I've noticed in the agenda that I've just had a look at this morning, I've seen a sort of actual drawing of the proposed development, and I haven't seen that before. And it really is kind of devastating to look at because it will certainly block that beautiful view of Bondi headland.
Thank you. You got through. Yeah, you're finished, Justine?
Yes, they are all of my, really strong points, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. They're the strongest considerations for both Con and I.
Okay, thank you. I'll just stay there for a minute and I'll ask the panel if they have any questions for you. No, of you? No? Graham does. Thank you.
Just one question. What level do you live on in your block? It's 3.
We're on the top level.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Great. Thank you very much, Justine. If you could just mute yourself now, and we'll go to the architects, Hector Valderrama. Hector, are you there?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So would you like to make a submission on this proposal, or are you here for questions?
Yeah, we are just happy to address any comments or questions that the panel may have.
Okay. Panel members, do we have any questions for the architect on this matter, on this item? Megan? No? Graham? No. That's it. That's thank you very much for your time and coming to take any questions. We'll now move on to the second item on the agenda. Second item is DA 268-2023, which is 146 Blair Street, North Bondi. It's the construction of a louvre enclosure for air conditioning and waste bins. It is an item which a number of submissions have been received, and the speakers today, we've got two speakers that are speaking against. Rosanna DeLuca, are you there, Rosanna?
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
when you're ready.
Yeah. Okay, I'm turning on my video. Can you see me?
Yes, we can, and
Okay,
hear you
thanks.
as well.
Lovely. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I confirm my genuine concerns about this proposed structure. Firstly, this proposal is inconsistent with the style of the existing built form of the semis and therefore diminishes the integrity of the architecture of the paired dwellings in this neighbourhood. Nowhere in this vicinity is there an enclosure attached to the front of a semi-dwelling. Building the structure forward of the building line will create an anomaly and is not consistent with the North Bondi character area listed in the DCP. If approved, this structure will set an undesirable and visually unappealing precedent for the future character of this neighbourhood. Consideration ought to be given to alternative locations for this enclosure with lesser impacts. For example, there is generous space available on the eastern wall side of the 146 Blair Street property and significant distance between 146 and the freestanding 148 property. Commonplace locations for aircon units are wall-mounted off the ground. Reasons for this are best practice. Manufacturers advise to not enclose domestic units and to ensure air circulation and minimise any fire risk. I provided numerous examples of units on similar properties in the North Bondi area. The location of the proposed enclosure is very close to our open veranda, living and sleeping quarters, and the aircon unit and bins will continue to affect our amenity when in operation all year round. Significant noise was generated by the unit when it was used whilst unlawfully located in this location. Currently, the residents generate noise as they access their bins in the front of their property adjacent to our veranda. Furthermore, garbage odours mingled with the aircon generated extractions are inevitable and problematic. The examples provided in the submission of waste bin storage enclosures are just that. None enclose air conditioning units. So in summary, thank you for considering these concerns. We are not suggesting the residents cannot have an aircon unit. Rather, it needs to be placed where it does not affect the amenity of other residents who share walls and are in close proximity to sleeping and living areas. The aircon unit could be placed on the side or rear of the 146 property and the waste bins placed under the large carport where residents can access them. This is a logical approach.
Roseanne, it's your time.
Right.
That's your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Roseanne? No? Panel? No. Thank you very much, Roseanne. Luke, Stewart, you're there?
Yes, Chair. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes, we can. So when you're ready.
Fantastic, thank you. I'll begin. So by way of introduction, my name's Luke. I'm a member of the North Bondi Precinct Committee, specifically the DA representative, which is how I came to know about this application. So I think Rox has mostly covered the principal issues with the application. As evidenced in the submission that was made, a photo was shown showing that not all of the 3 bins would be able to fit in the enclosure and the air conditioning units. So they're going to have to go somewhere else on the property, in addition to the front enclosure. And the proposed partitioning on the plans leaves questions regarding the size of the air conditioning units. Many of the other enclosures located along Blair Street do not contain bins, but contain sporting equipment and the like, and none of them have been approved by council. They are generally screened from the street by fencing or planting, which mitigates their impact, and none are prominently attached to the front facade of a semi. One of the submissions, it gives a extensive detail of this, showing photos of within the locality. The site has a generous side setback and thus sufficient capacity to locate the enclosure where it is not visible from the street and thus has fewer amenity impacts. If this is not considered possible, then it would be reasonable for us to conclude that the development in its entirety did not have a proper design approach, which is not then an excuse or license to offend the streetscape. I would also question council's application of their development control plan in this instance. On Nancy Street, just recently, a pre-DA advice was issued advising the applicants that they had to locate their waste storage containers behind the building line to maintain an open form front setback. The proposal does not satisfy clauses 1.32A and B of section B1 of the DCP, contrary to the what was written in the assessment report. With due respect to the assessment officer, I disagree with the conclusion regarding the special character area. The enclosure is inconsistent with the established streetscape rhythm as identified in the DCP. It is generally the case that utilities, waste receptacles, and the like are accommodated within side setbacks. Locating it on the front would be out of place and give rise to amenity impacts such as noise and smells, which could otherwise be avoided, particularly given the close proximity of living and sleeping areas on the adjoined property. The audio levels, as have been mentioned by Rox, already exceed reasonable levels and are audible from within the dwelling. I would also question, as has previously been questioned, whether this is in compliance with the manufacturer's specifications, as locating walls and enclosures so close to the sides of the air conditioning unit may not be in accordance with these requirements. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Luke. I'll just see if the panel has any questions for you. Any questions, panel? No? Thank you very much, Luke, for your time today, coming and speak to the panel. We'll now move on to, there's no speaker here for the applicant, so that's the end of that item. We'll now move on to item 3, which is DA 258/2023, which is 67 Knowles Avenue, North Bondi, alterations and additions to semi-detached dwelling, including new first floor addition. A number of submissions were received during the exhibition process, and we have 3 speakers, 3 objectors today, and we also have the applicant from Cape Cod, Australia. So can we first go to Florian Weguera? Florian, are you there?
Yes, hi, I'm here. Thank you.
Great. When you're ready, if you could commence, but noting you've got 3 minutes. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Dear Chairperson and members of the panel, thanks for having me. My name is Florian Wegerer, and I live with my family in 103 O'Donnell Street, the property most affected by this proposed development. My partner truly wanted to be here. I wish she was, but she is unavoidable in Melbourne for work. We bought our home in 2016 after looking for more than 6 months. And one of the major reasons we fell in love with it was the lush green sunny backyard. We have children who are now 9 and 11, and as a family, we always enjoyed our sunlit garden as an integral part of our living space and lifestyle. We regularly lay a blanket on the grass, we picnic in the sunshine, we snuggle, rumble, play with our dog. And we always had extended family gatherings, our children's birthday parties, and many other celebrations with more than 20 people, where our sunny garden has made this possible and delightful. We have invested time and energy in creating a sanctuary where we love to be and that promotes our mental health and well-being. We almost exclusively dine outdoors, cook regularly on our barbecue, it's like our second oven, and have designed and planted our own landscaping and outdoor shower, all of which brings us many hours of joy. We, the four of us and our extended family and friends, play, eat, celebrate, and simply love to spend time in our garden, and the sunshine is a crucial element of this enjoyment. The proposed development in its current form proposes total removal of the sun from our garden and natural light from our internal living space, not to mention the visual impact of the bulk of the building. This development is clearly non-compliant with the Solar Access Council guidelines. But more importantly, when we bought this property, we clearly had to anticipate the possibility of a development to the north of us one day. We understand that they want to improve their home, as do we all. But we also thought we were protected by council regulations regarding solar access and overshadowing. We did not for a moment believe that a development that doesn't adhere and in fact completely ignores those guidelines would have any chance of being accepted based on unexplainable merit. We do not understand why they should enjoy such a high degree of amenity at the complete and total disbenefit to us and cost of our sunshine and light. With such close living, surely this isn't a reasonable and equitable compromise of enjoyment of the area. There are other solutions that would preserve everybody's amenity. Isn't that what the guidelines are there for? We love living in our home, and we do not want to move from here. We are not wealthy people, and when we bought this home, we envisaged our children growing up here.
Florian, thank you. Florian, sorry to cut across. That's your time. That's your time. Okay, yeah. Thank you very much. We understand the overshadowing issue. The panel, do we have any questions for Florian? No? Thank you. And we note that you're also speaking on behalf of your wife and family.
Right. Thank you.
There's no questions for you. So we'll now go to Juan Palacios. I'm sorry if I've pronounced it incorrectly.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. When you're ready, you've got 3 minutes.
Thank you. Dear Waverley Local Planning panel members, I'm here to express my heartfelt opposition to DA 258-2023 and implore you to reconsider the recommendation to approve it. I'm Juan Manuel Palacios. I live at 101 O'Donnell Street, and I am a resident of Waverley who, along with my partner Frida, chose this community as our home a decade ago. We deliberately purchased our home in 2019, profoundly valuing the quality of life we believed Waverley could provide us. This decision became even more significant this year when we learned we were expecting our first child. Waverley is not only our home, it is where we envision raising our family. I understand the importance of progress and development in our community, but the proposed DA has devastated us. It breaks my heart, the apparent lack of consideration for how this development will impact the lives of residents like us. While the site of the proposed development may have been inspected before offering a recommendation, no one reached out to us to understand how our home and lives would be affected. Many issues have been raised with this DA, but given the time restrictions, I'd like to focus on one. If you approve this DA, you will deprive our house and garden of any and all direct sunlight in disregard of the rules and regulations that are in place to protect the well-being of everyone within our community. For Frida, gardening is not just a hobby, but an escape. It serves as a stress release and is vital to caring for her mental well-being. Frida is a dedicated teacher at Wairoa School for children with special needs, a remarkably demanding job. And nurturing our garden under the warmth of the sunlight is a therapeutic outlet for her. This is a practice that took root for her during the pandemic, a time when we all experienced stress, fear, and the loss of family and friends. For me, Waverley holds a very special place in my heart, not just as a resident, but as a community I have embraced and contributed to for the past decade. In the spirit of community, we have shared vegetables from our gardens with passersby, we welcome trick-or-treaters on Halloween, help neighbors in distress, and form connections with fellow residents. My community is a support system, a collective commitment to well-being of all. It is disheartening that DA 258-2023, which disregards the impact on immediate neighbors, could be put forward, much less recommended for approval. Today, I feel those in my community and council that push for the approval of this DA are depriving me and my family of the fair go all Australians are promised. I implore you to reconsider the human side of this decision. Our home is not just a structure, it is the center of our lives, where we feel safe and build our future. If you approve this development, despite its impact on our well-being, you will be saying to us that Waverley is not interested in building a community that takes care of each other. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much for that heartfelt submission. Panel, do we have any questions? One? No? No? Thank you. Then the speaker we've got now is Andrew Hughes. You're also in O'Donnell Street. Andrew?
That's right.
Yeah, we can hear you. Thank you.
Good stuff. My name's Andrew Hughes. My wife and our two kids have lived here at 105 O'Donnell Street for approximately 16 years. We're long-term residents of the Waverley area who enjoy the community atmosphere here. We've actually renovated our home in that time. We're understanding of others who wish to do the same. We just ask that those renovations and those plans are done in a way that's considerate of the site context and of the development controls. I'm not going to labour the issues, but briefly I'll touch on two of the design problems I see, and I'll finish with a couple of asks of the panel. In terms of the design, the first is compliance with the rear first floor setback control. We all sit at the interface of Knowles Avenue and O'Donnell Street. My neighbours who you just heard from are on O'Donnell, as am I. Our blocks on O'Donnell are actually relatively short in comparison to the subject site, which is quite long on Knowles Avenue. As a consequence, this difference means that development on our north side, on our long blocks to our north side, over-index on its shadowing impact on us. I just want to sort of everyone to pause on that. We're basically over-impacted because we've got sites meeting at 90 degrees and we're on the short south side of that. Further, what I would say is that compliance with setback controls is the norm in our area. You only need to look 2 and 3 doors up from the subject site to 61 and 63 Knowles Avenue, where there are setbacks. In fact, 61 Knowles has only been approved by council in the last 12 months and it's set back over 3 metres. So if ever there was a case for council to enforce its rear first floor setback control, surely this would be it. In this context, it's perplexing to comprehend how council could recommend a merit-based approval for the rear first floor setback. So we ask council, or the panel at least, what is the merit? In the interest of my 3 minutes, we'll hold the answer to that question, and I'll come to my second design issue. The second design issue is the overhanging balcony, and it's straight out the back there. Yes, council have asked the applicant to add a side screen, but for what effect? As we sit here now, well inside of our living area, and I'm 6 or 7 metres inside, anyone on the proposed balcony, even with the side screen, would be watching us in plain view. That's right, what I'm saying is they could see us now. That balcony would mean we have absolutely no privacy inside our own home. Not just our backyard, but right through our home and living area. Do you think that is fair? How would you feel if you were in our position? So, with that in mind, our ask of the panel is that you reject the application so that it can be reworked. We understand people want to develop, that's fine. We just ask that it be reworked to something that works for everyone.
Thank you.
Secondly,
That's your time. So we get the gist of what you're putting to us. So thank you. Panel, do we have any questions for Andrew? None? Thank you. Thank you for that, Andrew. There's no questions. Who will go to now is the applicant, Anum Tasneem from Cape Cod, Australia. Are you going to make a submission, or are you here for questions?
I'm just here for questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Megan, thank you. This is our expert, Megan.
Hi, I'm Megan Jones. I'm an architect. You've heard the comments from the neighbours. Have you had any consultation with the neighbours before you lodged the development application?
Sorry, I'm not sure about that. Client would have been in touch with him. I'm not sure about that.
So,
Sorry, Andrew, if you could just mute yourself. Thank you.
You're not the designer of the proposal? Are you the designer of the proposal?
So we are the applicant and the designer of the proposal, yes.
So have you, so in terms of the comments from the neighbours, was any consideration given in the design of the addition to minimise privacy issues and solar access issues?
So as you can see, the first floor is set back from the front, and we are behind the ridge line, and we are behind the ridge line by 300 mils. We tried our best to mitigate the overshadowing impacts and visual impacts. And on the side, as you can see on the side elevation, we have provided translucent glazing on all the bedroom windows. And we've also provided 1-point high privacy screen to the rear balcony. That's one thing. And secondly, we can see that the shadowing, the houses are receiving 3 hours of sunlight from night. You can see how it's just the orientation of the side and the layout of the sides, east to west orientation. The shadows are unavoidable. However, we've tried our best to do as much as possible and reduce any impacts.
So could I ask another question?
Yes, certainly. Keep going, Megan.
The cantilever of the south wall for the existing wall of the building, is that necessary?
Sorry, I didn't get that question.
Is it necessary for the side elevation, the new side elevation, to overhang the existing building?
As you can see, the first floor only has 3 bedrooms, which is required for to meet the needs of the growing family. If you were to increase the side setbacks and reduce the cantilever, then the bedrooms are going to get smaller. At the moment, they're like 2.5, which is just hardly giving the space for the client.
Thank you.
Graham, the other expert we've got, Graham Brown, would like to ask you a question as well.
Yep.
There is a guest bedroom on the ground floor, isn't it? So it's really 4 bedrooms.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Thank you.
Nothing further? I don't have any questions. Thank you very much for coming and making yourself available for the questions from the panel today. Thank you. We'll now move on to the item number 4 on our agenda, which is DA 279-2023, 28 Francis Street, Bondi Beach, alterations and additions to existing residential flat building. We have no speakers from on behalf of objectors, and we do have the applicant Sam Crawford, the architect, here. Sam, are you here to take questions, or would you like to make a submission first, presentation?
Just to take questions if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? No. Thank you for making yourself available, but there's no questions from the panel. We'll now move on to item number 5. And Mark, just see you're still here. Are you waiting for a decision, or because the decision will be made late this afternoon and put up on the website? So we've now managed and dealt with your item. Did you have anything else on the agenda today, or you're just sitting and listening?
Oh, I can just leave. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, you can leave. Sorry, yes, you can leave. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. So the item now we'll go to is item number 5, 88 Francis Street, Bondi Beach, which is alterations and additions to existing residential flat, including a rooftop addition to create a double-storey apartment, additional basement parking, and a car stacker. We have submissions received on the application through the exhibition period. We don't have an objector speaking with us today. We do have Jeff Mead here on behalf of the applicant from Planning Ingenuity, Jeff, did you want to make a submission, or are you here for questions, solely for questions?
Yeah, just here for questions, really. Just one point I did want to raise that just relates to a minor error in a condition. I just wanted to alert the panel to.
That'd be great. Thank you. Very helpful.
So it's condition 50, which relates to floor space ratio. The figure in part A of that condition, 305.78 square metres, is reference to the existing GFA on the site. The proposed GFA, as correctly set out in the report in other places, is 335.9 square metres. So that condition just simply requires the 305.78 to be replaced with 335.9 to be consistent with the application as set out throughout the report.
Thank you for that. Panel, do we have any questions? None? Nope. That's it. Great. Thank you very much for your time and making yourself available.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to item number 6, which is DA 101/2023. It's 483 Old South Head Road, Rose Bay. There was many submissions received during the exhibition period, which have been provided to the panel. We have registered speakers, 2 objecting, and we also have an applicant representative here as well. So if we can go to the objectors first, Hilla Cronentel. Hilla, are you there? Yes, that's you. You're on mute. So if you can unmute yourself. And then the 3 minutes. So you've got 3 minutes. So if you could stick to that 3 minutes, that'd be much appreciated. When you're ready. Thanks.
Thank you. So hi panel, my name's Hilla Cronental and I'm here with my husband, Frank Boris. We're the owners of Unit 21 of 481 Old South Head Road, Rose Bay, which is the apartment on the top of the building adjacent to the proposed development. This property's been in the family for almost 15 years and we've enjoyed lots of light and a sunny outlook throughout our time here. Look, we're not opposed to development at all, but the development that's been proposed is going to significantly affect not only my view, but it's actually going to completely eliminate solar access into my bathroom, bedroom and kitchen. We looked at the plans and the overshadowing plans, and we don't feel that the plans are necessarily correct. So I'd like to actually show you. I'd like to actually show you my plans.
Oh no! Don't share your screen. You don't. No, we don't do shared screen. Sorry.
I just wanted to show you because the way that the light is actually accessing the plans, I will show you. It's actually blocking.
Don't share. The best thing, if you could just email them.
Yes, sure.
And then we can have a look at them during our deliberation.
Sure, no problem. So essentially, we feel that this development, the wall that is adjacent to my apartment, is essentially going to eliminate all sunlight into particularly my kitchen and my into my bathroom, which leads into the main bedroom. So we're just asking for, we're not opposed to development, but we're just asking if it could be more skillfully designed so it doesn't affect my apartment and the light into my apartment, because it will be significantly affected.
So can I just also add, so the back section, so if you look at the shadowing diagram, with the current lighting, there's sun that gets to the back of the bedroom, so we have the bedroom, then out onto, so if you're starting from the balcony, we've got the on one side is the bathroom and then the main bedroom. There's currently light coming in up to about 10, 11 o'clock into the main bedroom from the rear, we're not going to have any light coming into the bedroom with the new proposed development, because that'll entirely overshadow that area. And also that goes same with the front of the building. So we're not going to have light into the bathroom. We're not going to have light into the kitchen. So these are our major concerns. So what we're seeking is if the architect could redesign predominantly the front section of the building, so not to have that front facade go out all the way, but to meet what the current facade is to our building on the left-hand side. So that would then that would ensure light comes in, and it also would not disrupt our view.
Okay, great. So we got Hilla and Pat both then. The panel, do we have any questions for Hilla? Pat? Yes, Megan has a question. She's one of our experts.
Hi, I just wanted to clarify, which is your apartment? Are you
unit 21? So it's the top apartment, which is directly against the wall
of the proposed
development. So I have I have about a 50 square metre terrace which leads into my apartment, which is adjacent to the development. So essentially, they're looking to put a wall up which goes about 2 or 3 metres above the current wall.
Thank you.
Good. All right. So let's now hear from the applicant, Daniel Barber.
I'm actually not the applicant. I'm representing the adjoining strata building.
Oh, okay. So, Hilla. So Pat wasn't with Hilla. This is Pat. Oh, okay. My apologies. I thought that was Pat. Pat Carrillo, is Pat there?
Sorry, I've just unmuted.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought I got completely confused there by Hilla and her husband.
Myself and Hilla are both unit owners in the adjacent building, and Daniel Barber is also a town planner, which we had employed on our behalf to speak for us as well. Oh,
so Daniel Barber is speaking on behalf of the objectors.
On behalf of the strata plan, whilst Pat.
Well, the strata plan.
Yeah, the individual units.
All right. Okay. So Pat, did you want to say anything, or are you going to hand it over to Daniel?
Yes, please, if I may.
Yes, you can. You've got 3 minutes.
Great, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you, panel, for allowing me to speak. And look, I must say, first of all, like Hyla, I'm not against redevelopment. We understand it's necessary, and we, in fact, to a large degree, we welcome this because the current thing there is really an eyesore in any case, and we understand that sooner or later something is going to replace it. However, the design, whilst it may comply with DCPs, although Daniel might have a question there, I certainly don't believe it complies necessarily with the spirit of, how we say, compatibility with existing building and also streetscape. Because if you look at the streetscape view of the front of the building, it really is overbearing, to say the least. Now, where I am impacted, I occupy the top floor and the westernmost balcony on the northern side of our building, which is the southern side of the new building. Now, I purchased this for my daughter back in 2016, and we paid top dollar for it. It was the only thing we could afford near there where she lives that had some views, albeit district views. But it had some views, and it was a very, very pleasant outlook from inside the unit. It was very light and airy. I do have some photos which I would like to email yourselves a little bit later. I was of the impression I might be able to show you now, but apparently I can't do that. Now, the thing is, this building is going to totally obliterate all views. Now, what concerns me is, and I understand the views, how much priority can they take? Yeah, sure, there's a difference between losing a distant view from something that's built in some distance away in any case, to losing a view and replaced with some overbearing building that is literally in your face. And I'm talking for instance, there's a planter box there that I could almost reach over my balcony and touch at a pinch. I think if I measure it or calculate it correctly, it's probably about 1.5 meters away. The other thing is that there will be a significant loss of sunlight now, and that's real sunlight, not what's calculated at a particular time of day at some particular time of the year. I'm talking when you have something that towers above you, yes, you might get a bit of a ray of sunshine from a particular angle, but that's small compensation for losing the flooded sunlight that I currently have, let alone the total loss of view. And that's going to affect the life of the owners there. The balcony there is a very pleasant place to sit out and look out of. And I understand council is not concerned with loss of value. In this case, it really will be devastating to the value of this particular unit. Because again, I pay top dollar, probably 20% above what every other unit sold there because of that view. If this goes ahead in its present form,
thank you. That's your time. Unfortunately, loss of value is not a criteria that any council, it's not part of the LEP, so it's not something that can be a determining factor, but we hear your frustration on that. Do we have questions for Pat, panel? Graham Brown's got a question for you, Pat.
You mentioned view loss and loss of sunlight. Where is that from? Is that from the front balcony, is it?
Well, it's the balcony is, yes, at the front of the unit and balcony face north. So it's facing the southern wall of the proposed new building. So rather than have at the moment where I've got nothing there, albeit on one side I oversee the top of their roof. Now, that will be replaced literally by a brick wall, which will tower above my balcony, I would estimate by about 2 or 3 metres. Now, I don't believe without a proper site inspection, which I don't believe is, well, certainly no one's been to my balcony to have a look. I don't believe council or the panel can really get an honest assessment of what it is that I'm talking about, because it's very difficult to follow drawings and things. I'd like to come out and visit, and I would respectfully ask all that, and that's the reason for my being here today, to basically respectfully ask that you visit the site. Council, I'm more than happy to talk with the architect, see if we can work something out. I believe it can be worked out quite readily, but without a proper site inspection, I'm at the, and I feel I'm being disadvantaged because you can't really gauge exactly what it is we're talking about.
Sorry, Pat, thank you. We just want you to stick to the question that was asked.
Yeah, I'm happy with what the answer was.
Okay, thank you, Pat. There's nothing further. All right. I also note that Daniel Barber, you're speaking on behalf of the owners at 481 Old South Head Road. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Well, there was just a bit of a mix-up. All right, so you've got 3 minutes as well. So when you're ready, Pat, if you could just mute yourself, that'd be great. Thank you. Daniel, when you're ready.
Yep. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the Strata Plan. I just want to just mention, look, the Strata Plan is broadly accepting of the proposal, understands the right to redevelop the site. We see two potential minor changes which we're seeking to the proposal, which wouldn't result in the loss of floor area or the commercial viability of the project, but would result in a significant improvement to the amenity of those residents. So as you've probably seen from the drawings, that a lot of the apartments at 481 have their northern orientation, and they're all their primary living area and balconies facing to the north. And they currently receive 70% of those apartments receive 2 hours of sunlight. As a result of the proposal, 70% of those units won't receive 2 hours of sunlight, it'll only be the uppermost levels. If the proposal had an increased setback of about a metre to 1.5 metres from the rear, but could be modulated, that can come out by 1 metre, 1.5 metres further to the north of their building, we would be able to get at least 70% of the apartments would get 2 hours of sunlight access. So it'd be a very small change in the setback that wouldn't impact the floor area they would achieve, but it would provide a significant improvement in amenity, because at the moment, the lower two levels, they don't get any sunlight at all in midwinter. So that's just a minor change we're requesting, which would have a significant improvement to the quality of life of those residents. It's outlined in my submission. I actually marked it up for reference if you want to look later. The other design changes, at the moment, the building of the street sits about 1 metre higher, 1.5 metre higher than both the adjoining existing buildings. The result of the increase in height is a planter. So not requesting a reduction in floor area, but simply if the planter at the upper level could be set back to adjoin the facade of the adjoining residential flat building at 481. What that would do is it would address the concern of the loss of outlook mentioned by Hillia previously, and also her private space area gets significantly overshadowed as a result of a blank wall sitting right on the boundary. But if that planter was dropped, the blank wall would only be about 1 metre, and she would actually retain sunlight to that private open space. So it's about having within, for example, 2 metres of the boundary, having the planter deleted and just having a flat roof to reduce the overbearing nature of that blank wall on the boundary. And given it's not needed for the floor area below, it's an architectural feature. We think it's something that's quite reasonable to request. And then just a third point, but a lot of the residents were quite upset that they won't have the ability of council coming doing assessment of the property and seeing the overshadowing impact and lots of outlook. The residents would appreciate the matter be deferred for a site inspection by council's assessment officers to appreciate the amenity of those units as sunlight access and views, but that's for the panel's discretion. And that's all my points.
Great. Thank you, Daniel. That was helpful. Panel, any questions? No? Great. Thank you very much. That was, like I said, quite helpful for that explanation. So thank you, speakers. I'll just note that the determination of that item will be out on the website as soon as it can be arranged this week. Thank you.
Sorry, Speaker, would I just be able to ask, what was the email address that you would like us to email those images to?
Was there an address on the website where you had to register?
Yes. Is it the same email?
Same email.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Hilla. Thank you. Now we'll move on to the last item number 7, which is DA 552-2021, 26 to 32 Hall Street, Bondi Beach. It's an order for alterations and additions to existing residential flat building, including a rooftop addition to create a double-storey apartment, additional basement parking and car stacker. We have a number of submissions received on this application, and we've got a number of objectors here to speak. Can I just remind everyone again that it's 3 minutes, if you could limit yourself to when you speak, and to not interrupt when another person is speaking. Hayden Keenan, are you there as the first speaker?
Yes, I am. I've got a problem with my camera. Just for the sake of clarity,
that's fine. We can hear you. That's fine.
For the sake of clarity, I think it'd be preferable if Adrian Finlay went first, as I don't want to step on his foot, so to speak.
That's kind. All right. Well, let's go to Adrian. Is Adrian there?
Oh, hi, Chair. I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you.
Sorry to do this, but I believe Marg was going to speak first. I'll follow second and Hayden can follow up in third if you would be happy to accept that.
Sorry, who's going to speak? I've only got Margaret.
Margaret Merton.
Margaret, I'm here as well. Yep.
So Margaret,
Adrian, Hayden.
We're going to ask you to start, and then Adrian, and then Hayden. Great. All right. Well,
thank you.
You ready, Margaret? You've got 3 minutes.
Yes. Thank you very much. So it's almost a year to the day that we met with this same panel to discuss this proposed development. And at the time, the WLPP decided on a series of conditions of consent for the DA that we felt was a very good outcome, an outcome that balanced our concerns about the impact on our amenity and the proposed building. At the time, the developer said on record that he had no problem accepting these conditions. And the conditions of the consent by the WLPP required were fair, workable, sensible, and importantly, compliant. To our concern, however, we're back here today discussing this DA and the fact that the developer has put forward a set of amended plans that totally ignore the WLPP's conditions of consent. Once again, we're faced with an inappropriate building that is not compliant by significantly exceeding the 45-degree angle for setbacks and increasing the visual bulk and scale overlooking our properties. A building that increases the retail tenancies from 3 to 5. A building that has squeezed in an extra flat. A building where the developer has reconfigured the back of the development from 3 flats with no balconies overlooking our properties on the south wall to 6 much smaller flats, now all with balconies overlooking our properties. The WLPP's conditions required the balconies in the original plans to face the west to diminish the loss of amenity, privacy and to mitigate excessive noise. And this is important because in the council report on these new amended plans, at no stage does the council officer mention the impact of noise from these new balconies. And in terms of our amenity, noise pollution is one of the biggest issues we face in this area of Bondi, where we've got a lot of Airbnb party flats and so on. To our further concern, just 12 months later, Council has now done a complete 180 and now supports these amended plans. In sum, the proposed development exceeds the 45-degree building envelope. This deviation will have an adverse impact on our amenity and in particular increased visibility into private spaces, visual bulk and scale and heightened noise pollution. It's crucial to note that the claim that the part of the building breaching the 45-degree angle largely looks at a blank wall and that this is misleading. A site visit would reveal the true impact and help satisfy the panel's need for a comprehensive understanding of the situation. Secondly, there's a serious procedural irregularity in the assessment process that should not be ignored. The assessing officer deviated from the appropriate development control plan and instead of utilising the current DCP 2022, they chose to rely on the outdated DCP 2012, justifying this decision as contextually appropriate. We have no idea what that means, and it raises concerns about adherence to established guidelines and compromises the integrity of the decision-making process. Adding to these concerns is the suspicion that this development modification is an attempt to undermine the expert recommendation and conditions of consent put forth by the local planning panel. And to allow a deviation from these recommendations, especially at the behest of a council officer, sets a very dangerous precedent that undermines the purpose of having an independent panel of experts. It also erodes the power of the DCP to deliver better buildings that balance community concerns with commercial outcomes. In the interest of fairness,
Margaret, that's your 3 minutes. So thank you. We've a number of speakers today, so we're just getting everyone to stick to those 3 minutes.
Sure.
I chaired that meeting, but the rest of the panel is different. So this panel today is a different panel. I just wanted to point that out for yourself and everyone else, that I did chair that panel, but the rest of the panel members are different. So just so you're aware.
Thank you. Can I ask you, Madam Chair, would it be possible for us to email through our 3 speeches to you, because Adrian's going to go into a lot more granular detail about the discrepancies that we have concerns about.
Yeah, Margaret,
and it might help.
Yeah, we've actually received the submissions on this. You can email them through, but I'm not whether we consider them as part of our deliberation. I can't guarantee that will happen.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Margaret. Adrian, are you there? Speaking next.
Hi, Chair. You can hopefully see me and hear me.
Both. Very well.
Thank you very much. Well, thanks very much, panel. My name is Adrian Finlay, and I'm representing many of the directly affected residents that objected to this DA and my parents who are with me and the owners of our family home, which is the adjoining heritage listed property at 15 Concert Avenue. It's a shame that we do find ourselves here again, defending our homes from a development that does not comply with setbacks, the building envelope at the rear, and the conditions of consent that were implemented by the LPP last year and accepted by the developer. With relation to the modifications, I would firstly like to say that we do agree with the conditions of consent to be modified 2E and 2F, which relate to the replacement of paving at the rear with landscaping and installation of windows preventing pedestrian access to that area. However, we do not agree with the proposed non-compliant building form at the rear, which exceeds the 45-degree envelope without any reasonable justification and rejects the conditions of consent. On 14 December 22, this DA went before the LPP. Council and the Waverley Design Advisory Panel strongly recommended several conditions which were implemented by the LPP, including that the building fit within that 45-degree envelope. To just give you a few examples, the council report at the time repeatedly stated that exceeding the envelope at this site will, on page 22, lead to a poor design outcome that is not compatible with the future character of the locality. On page 21, that exceeding the envelope is excessive, does not achieve the desired interface between commercial and residential of Hall Street and Concert Avenue. On page 13, that exceeding the envelope presents excessive building bulk and visual impacts which will have an adverse impact on 15 Concert Avenue. Now, when this modification was submitted on 13th of July 2023, Council deferred it with the key reason being the southern elevation should be contained within the 45-degree envelope to minimise bulk and amenity impacts on adjoining residents, specifically 15 Concert Avenue. That's on page 8. Since then, Council has unfortunately, and for reasons unknown to the community, done a backflip and now recommend without reasonable justification in the recent report that the breach be allowed, arguing that it aligns with the adjoining development at 32 to 36 Hall Street and that the new design won't have a negative impact on residents' amenity despite significantly breaching that 45-degree angle. These reasons are misleading and they contradict Council's previous arguments. For example, 32 to 36 Hall Street has a ground floor setback of 6 metres and it complies with the building envelope as per the Land and Environment Court ruling. The subject site does not comply. How is that aligned? And to say that the modifications won't have an impact on residents' amenity is false and in direct conflict with the assessment carried out last year that stated any incursion beyond the 45-degree angle is unacceptable and will have a significant impact on our amenity. In closing, I would ask the LPP to ensure compliance with the planning controls and conditions of consent, in particular the setbacks and 45-degree angle, as they previously did due to the significant impact on our amenity. And also review the previous assessment provided to the LPP, because everybody that has read this report in conjunction with the modified assessment states that this one does not pass the pub test. The recommendations in this recent modification recommendation does not pass the pub test. Thank you very much, panel. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Adrian. The questions for Adrian? No. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
The next speaker is Hayden.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can't see.
Look, I don't know. I can add all that much more to the input from Margaret and Adrian, except to say this DA is emblematic of the creaking edifice we see in our community in relation to planning and development. The dismissive approach on the part of the developer to negotiating and having any communication with neighbours, and in particular with the attitude towards reasonable conditions of consent laid down by this committee, this panel last year, is of deep concern. We are confronted with what I think are not modifications. This is a new DA. The changes that have been put into this application warrant a complete new DA. You should not be having to deal with this, and who knows, whatever conditions of consent you put up, are they voluntary? Because last year's certainly don't seem to be of any interest to the developer. Could I just say that one of the things that I think is of real concern is that whilst the magic of construction and artificial intelligence seems to be able to add more retail space and add more rental and space to the site, the budget hasn't gone up one penny. It's still, luckily for everyone concerned, a couple of dollars under the $10 million threshold that requires a social impact statement. And under $10 million, it relies on the discretion of planning staff. Given the history of this DA, I think that a full social impact assessment should be undertaken. And I think somehow you should insist on the conditions last year that you put down should be complied with. This application is not compliant. And for it to have an envelope bigger than approved and bigger than its neighbour had approved by the Land and Environment Court could set a nasty precedent. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Hayden. Questions? Yes, we have our community member, Sam, who is going to ask you, Sam Marshall, who's going to ask you a question. Hayden?
Hayden, can I ask what your interest in the property is? You've given a PO box. Are you a neighbour or?
I'm just down the street in Lamrock.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Great. Well, thank you for coming and taking your time again to speak on this item. I appreciate the challenges on this modification or alteration conditions for you both, for the three of you and your families. The applicant, we've got some representatives. We've got the architect, developer and town planner. Are you here to make some submissions or just to answer any questions? It'd be good to hear from one on the purpose or behind or the need for this application for alterations and conditions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Kate Bartlett, the Town Planner. I'm happy to respond and just give some background to the project as well as respond to some of the items that were raised by the objectors, if that suits.
Thank you, Kate.
So obviously, thank you for the opportunity to speak at this meeting. And we also do want to thank the council officers who have worked closely with us to get what we see as an improved design for the building. As you noted yourself, Madam Chair, this application came before the panel in December 2022. And there were a number of changes made to the rear of the design, and they were done and they were conditions that we hadn't had the benefit of seeing before, which is fine. That is well within the panel's rights. And we understood them that they were really made to maximise your visual and dwellings, particularly by turning some of those balconies to the west to face away from Concert Avenue heritage items. There are a few issues with that, and what I might pop up in a second, if you're comfortable, is
no, we don't ask. No, sorry, we don't ask that you share your screen. We have plans in front of us, so if you want to talk to existing plans, we'll each have the plan. So if you just call out, identify the plan number, and we can follow you that way.
So a few things that have happened since last December. If you look at DA 201, revision F.
Yep. DA 201. Yep. Thank you. Yep.
There are two different. So you can see if you look to the west or the western property, which was the court case, 34 to 38 Hall Street. What we did with the design at this location, particularly in recognition that the Concert Avenue heritage item existed there as well, is that the facing of the balconies directly to the west actually would have had what we saw to be quite negative impacts on 34 to 38 Hall Street. So we amended the typology so that it would also have south facing. This is just for the western portion of our site, that the balconies would be south facing. But you can see with the overlays that they have the same separation as 34 to 38 Hall Street did. And that's particularly relevant because that part of the building has full compliance with the 45-degree plane that was raised by a number of objectors and is the same treatment as was done with the other property, 34 Hall Street, which also faces 15 Concert Avenue.
I think just hang on. You following?
What we did on the eastern side of the site.
Kate, could you just hold on for that for a minute?
That drawing is very faint.
Sure. Yeah, not a problem.
The drawing of 34 to 38 is so faint that it's almost impossible to see where that alignment is. And from my looking at it, it doesn't look like it aligns. It looks like it extends further.
It does align. These were some of the changes that the council officers advised us we would need to make if the application were to be supported. And I understand you'll be seeing the officers later. So in particular, we took all attributes that were required for 34 to 38 Hall Street from the court proceedings in terms of site corridors, in terms of additional planters, in terms of the 45-degree height plane, and the officers, I'm sure, would be able to provide that to you because that was required of us if they were going to support the application.
Okay, so the next, then you had another point. We
So
interrupted. Sorry.
if you come, yep, no, not a problem. So then if you look to the eastern half of the site, one of the key items to 34 Hall Street, and you've essentially got a scenario whereby there's a blank wall treatment to the rear where 1 Jacques Avenue exists, and then 20 Hall Street goes the full length of the building. And this was the part of the site where our argument was that given it was an entirely surrounded by residential flat building typology, and that blank walls were essentially what our southern interface was, that the more appropriate control for this environment is the ADG building separation requirements, and that as the SEP 65 talks of, is that the ADG overrides DCP provisions in these sorts of circumstances. And so this was where we saw to slightly extending the southern portion on the eastern side only, where it only interfaced with blank wall treatments of other residential buildings. And that, in my view, completely aligns with how SEP 65 talks of, where an apartment design guide provision would override a DCP. Now, part of the reason that we did that is that also in recognising the conditions that were imposed last time, and the intent for them, there was a relatively significant reduction of 170 square metres of floor space against the FSR control. I'm well aware that obviously FSRs are a maximum and that you can't always achieve them. But we saw the opportunity or the importance of also enabling the development to be feasible by re-looking at the site in the context of ensuring that the visual and acoustic privacy issues were resolved with Concert Avenue, and then also providing some additional flexibility given the blank wall apartment treatment on the eastern side of the building. In terms of some of the other issues about whether it should be a modification or a DA, my SCE talks to in detail the requirements against substantially the same. There are no fundamental changes to this scheme. It continues to be a 4-storey shop-top housing apartment building. There's a single unit change, but it's still entirely compliant with the controls outlined within the framework. So that's probably the key things I would say, unless there are other questions.
Panel, Megan, did you? No. Sam, Graham, no. We don't have any questions. The panel, you've got 3 of you there. No one else there wants to speak. Is that right?
So Jacqueline, I'm the architect from Bang Architecture representing clients. I would like to have submission as well.
Okay.
I would like to say that we, over the last 6 months, worked closely with council to get this site ready for appropriate design. This includes a site meeting where we have concluded that the setbacks at the rear shift from 20 to 24 Hall Street, close to compliant 34 to 38 Hall Street. And this site, being so site-specific, makes that transition between the 2 corner sites. And we've thereby established that this is the appropriate outcome. The DCP envelope, as we mentioned, we have the 45-degree angle. However, the DCP doesn't stipulate any side setbacks. And as you can see, our scheme does incorporate a 3-meter side setback at each end to alleviate the neighbors, but also the southern neighbors from any additional overshadowing. The shadow diagrams submitted with this DA can be assessed, and there's a comparison between the DCP envelope, making that envelope with the 45-degree angle, and you can compare this with the submission and with the previous approved scheme. And there you can see that in the mornings, the overshadowing of the proposed development are actually less than what a compliant envelope would inflict on the southern neighbors. So we'd like to address this point. And there is indeed a small extension beyond that 45-degree angle. This is on the 15 Constant side, is a planter box that would create extra privacy for the top unit to not overlook any of the nearby properties. And towards the blank wall condition on 1 Jacks Avenue, this extra overshadowing compared to the DCP envelope would inflict purely on a blank wall condition. So we think the comparison to the DCP and what council is here, what the submissions are actually referring to, we think this is a superior scheme considering the existing conditions and the future conditions of the neighboring properties. So that's something I would like to add to this submission. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the architect? None. Thank you. And we've got Vaughan here. I don't know if Vaughan wants to speak. We've got no questions for Vaughan. Vaughan's the developer. No.
Madam Chair, I'm comfortable with the comments made so far. Suffice it to say that we are now FSR and height compliant. So, and the mix of the residential, the retail units down below are just carving up into smaller retail spaces as per council's request.
Thank you. I think that's it. So thank you all for coming and speaking on this item once again. That's the end of our items for today's meeting. So thank you everyone for your time. Thank you staff. And I'll now close the meeting and we'll go into deliberations with the outcomes being